A group of scientists time travel to a world where there are not just one but 3 moons. To find out what other terrifying things they will encounter there, they need to investigate. The story begins with a scientist named Dr. Marshall, who is being interviewed by a reporter. Marshall had been researching time travel for many years, but other scientists considered his experiment to be utterly worthless. Even the reporter dismissed Marshall's experiment as useless. Although Marshall had written a book detailing all his experiments, the reporter continued to criticize him without pause. Eventually, Marshall's patience snapped, and he began attacking the reporter on national television. People had to intervene and separate them with great difficulty. Because of this outrageous behavior, Marshall was fired from his job. 3 years later, Marshall's job as a scientist was gone, and he started teaching at a school. Perhaps this was now Marshall's destiny. He had even stopped researching his projects. However, one day, a girl named Holly came to see Marshall. Holly told him that she was a big fan of all his research and was confident that he could complete it. Marshall believed that everyone thought his research was worthless, but Holly reassured him that she was a very big fan. Holly then gave Marshall a stone she had found in the desert of the past. The stone was emitting a lot of techno energy, which is why Holly brought it straight to Marshall. 3 years ago, Marshall had also worked on techno energy. Seeing the stone, Marshall was shocked because it was indeed a treasure trove of techno energy. Holly requested that, using all this energy, Marshall could resume working on his time travel project. After much persuasion, Marshall agreed to this, meaning that after a long 3 years, he would return to his research. Holly took Marshall to the desert where she had found the stone. There was a shop in that area run by a man named Will. The shop had a lot of goods for tourists. After explaining everything to Will, he became interested in their research as well. Therefore, Will decided to join Marshall and Holly on their journey. After packing all the necessary supplies, the 3 of them set out on their way. Dr. Marshall had a machine that could detect techno energy. As they detected various things, they came across a waterway they needed to cross. They continued slowly towards their destination, but suddenly, Marshall began receiving a very strong signal for techno energy. They diverted their path to where the source was located. Just then, an earthquake began, and within moments, the 3 of them were swept into a whirlpool of water that transported them to another world. Within seconds, Marshall, Holly, and Will found themselves in a vast desert. When Marshall looked up at the sky, he saw not 1, but 3 moons. As they moved a bit further, they spotted a large ship in the middle of the desert. None of them could understand how the ship had ended up in the desert. They were completely disoriented, not knowing where they had arrived. In fact, they had unknowingly time traveled. The techno energy source Dr. Marshall had been searching for had completed their research. However, Marshall was still unaware of these time travel details. The 3 of them gradually moved forward in the desert sand. They soon saw some monkeys fighting among themselves at a distance. Suddenly, the monkeys noticed Will and the others and began approaching them. To protect himself, Will turned on a lighter. The monkeys, seeing fire for the first time, were very frightened. They couldn't understand who these people were and what the object in Will's hand was. Then, as the lighter got hot, it slipped from Will's hand and fell. 2 of the monkeys grabbed the lighter and ran away with it. A final monkey was hiding behind a rock, so Will tried to approach it gently and talk to it. Although the monkey couldn't speak, it managed to tell them its name, Shaka. Shaka was quite shy because of Holly's friendly conversation and started to run away. Marshall, Will, and Holly began to chase him, but suddenly they all fell into a pit with Shaka. Inside the desert, they found themselves in a strange place where bones surrounded them on all sides. None of them had any idea what was happening. Then, suddenly, vines from a deadly tree began to grab and pull them. These were deadly tree vines that eliminated their prey. Now, all four were hanging upside down by their legs, feeling like they wouldn't survive. Just then, a huge dinosaur appeared, which bit through the vines to try to eat them, causing them all to fall to the ground. But as one danger passed, a greater one emerged. The dinosaur began to chase them relentlessly. Marshall and his friends ran through the mountains and eventually found a small cave. The dinosaur couldn't reach them because the cave entrance was too narrow for its mouth. This meant that Marshall and his friends were safe from the dinosaur. While they were inside the cave, there was no need to fear the dinosaur, as it couldn't enter. Shaka then led them further into the cave, where they found many things, including the skeletons of 2 humans. Seeing this, Marshall was a bit frightened. Will then told Marshall that they needed to close all the openings in the pit so that the dinosaur couldn't get in. However, Marshall explained that dinosaurs had a demand for strength, so as long as they were inside the cave, the dinosaur couldn't even think of coming in. In the next moment, a large object fell on top of their cave. When Marshall went to check, he saw that it was a giant walnut. Marshall was a bit stunned because he had imagined the dinosaur's brain to look like a walnut, and now this walnut had fallen from the sky. What on earth is happening in this world? Marshall was completely puzzled. After spending the night in the cave, he noticed some lights in a nearby area. Marshall and his companions decided to investigate. Suddenly, Marshall had a vision of a small alien who seemed to be calling for help. Marshall, Holly, and Will reached the area with the lights, where they found a triangular ship with a mirror, but there was no visible way to enter it. Then, a large number of lizard men appeared. These were strange creatures with bodies resembling lizards, and their numbers were overwhelming. They began to advance towards Marshall and his friends. Holly started using her belt for protection, but Marshall noticed that the belt was creating some reflections. He decided to focus the light from Holly's belt onto the mirror, which created multiple reflections. This light then went into the triangular mirror, opening a path inside. Without delay, Marshall, Holly, and Will entered the mirror. Interestingly, the lizard men could not follow them inside. Once inside, Marshall saw the same white lizard from his vision earlier. The white lizard spoke to Marshall and showed him a video of the red lizard species. The white lizard explained that the red lizards wanted to conquer Earth, and when he opposed them, they had imprisoned him here. He said that if they wanted to save Earth, they needed to free him. Marshall asked how it could be done, and the white lizard explained that the device they had used to get here could also be used to get him out and eliminate the red lizard species. Marshall found these details believable, so he, Holly, and Shaka set out to the place from where they had arrived in this world. As they reached that part of the desert, they noticed that many things from Earth were falling here. Marshall thought they would easily find the machine and get out, but suddenly, large dinosaurs appeared. Many of these dinosaurs were fighting each other. Marshall told his companions not to be afraid because the dinosaurs wouldn't harm them. However, soon, the dinosaurs noticed Marshall and his friends and started advancing towards them to attack. Marshall, frightened, climbed into a vehicle, but the dinosaurs were determined and began to climb on top of the vehicle to get him out. Although Marshall managed to escape, he was unsure where to go to avoid the dinosaurs. Suddenly, he spotted a nitrogen gas cylinder. He quickly took it to his friends and, using a boom ram, shot the gas into the dinosaurs' mouths. The nitrogen gas spread through the dinosaur's body, causing it to freeze and then explode. The device Marshall and his friends were searching for was actually inside the dinosaur's stomach, right in front of them. However, Marshall's luck was not on his side. As he reached for the device, a flying dinosaur swooped in and took the device away. Marshall watched helplessly as the dinosaur flew off, wondering if he would ever find it again. Seeing Marshall's despair, Holly approached him and motivated him, reminding him of why he started this mission in the first place. She urged him to continue with his research, even if it meant facing difficulties, and to prove to the rest of the world that his research was valid. After hearing Holly's encouraging words, Marshall regained his determination. He, Holly, and Shaka set off in pursuit of the flying dinosaur. They discovered that the dinosaur was residing at the top of a mountain. Therefore, climbing the mountain was their only option. After several hours of challenging ascent, they finally reached the top, where a fiery volcano awaited them. They saw that the nesting dinosaur had laid many eggs, and among these eggs was the device that Marshall had created. However, right underneath the eggs was bubbling lava, and touching it would mean certain death. Despite this, Marshall was determined to retrieve his machine. Summoning his courage, he carefully moved forward and managed to retrieve the device. The machine emitted a soft melody, but as soon as Marshall picked it up, the music stopped. The dinosaur's eggs began to crack open one by one, causing a loud commotion. The melody had previously kept the dinosaurs asleep, so the sudden noise from the baby dinosaurs would surely wake their mother, the large dinosaur. To prevent this, Marshall began singing to calm the baby dinosaurs. Seeing Marshall sing, the others joined in, and soon the baby dinosaurs fell back to sleep. With the machine secured, the group returned to the desert area. Marshall, Holly, Shaka, and Wells took a moment to relax. Shaka, very pleased, picked some fruit from a nearby tree and shared it with Marshall and Wells. While they enjoyed the fruit, Holly declined, as she was focused on examining how the device worked. Unbeknownst to them, the fruit was poisonous and would put them to sleep for several hours. After eating, Marshall and Wells fell into a deep slumber. Holly, however, detected multiple signals of tech energy from the device and followed them. She discovered a cave with many crystals inside. As Holly examined an egg, a hologram of the red lizard appeared. The red lizard revealed the truth. The entity aiming to destroy Earth was none other than the white lizard. The white lizard had used the red lizard's name to deceive them into taking the device. Just as the red lizard finished explaining, the white lizard appeared from behind and shot him. After the hologram ended, Holly moved a little further and discovered the dead body of the red lizard. From this, Holly understood that their enemy was the white lizard. Unfortunately, it might have been too late. Two lizards arrived and captured Holly, taking her away. Several hours later, Marshall, Wells, and Shaka regained consciousness and realized Holly was missing. They set out to find her and arrived at the same cave. Marshall and Wells observed that two lizards were present, and they had shed their skins, similar to how snakes do periodically. Taking advantage of the situation, Wells and Marshall wore the discarded lizard skins and followed the lizards to the white lizard's palace. Marshall and Wells saw that the lizards had imprisoned Holly in a cage. The white lizard and his minions were shocked to see Marshall and Wells. Marshall tricked them into thinking he was willing to be killed if Holly was spared, but it was a ruse. He jumped directly to the cage, freed Holly, and rescued her just in time. If Marshall hadn't acted quickly, Holly would have fallen into the lava. Holly informed Marshall and Wells that the true enemy was the white lizard, not the red lizard. The white lizard and his entire army planned to destroy Earth. Marshall grew even more anxious, realizing that he had sent Shaka, with the device, to the white lizard. Soon, the white lizard and his army arrived. The white lizard now possessed the device that would allow him to travel to Earth. He declared that he would go to Earth with his army and begin to reproduce, gradually increasing their population until Earth was under their control. The white lizard summoned a giant dinosaur to aid in their plans and departed with his companions. Marshall, Wells, and Holly were left trapped at the scene. The dinosaur was wreaking havoc everywhere. Marshall displayed great bravery and told Wells and Holly to leave. Although Marshall and Holly had grown very close and were in love, he still urged them to go. Marshall then went alone to fight the giant dinosaur. Unfortunately, the dinosaur swallowed him whole, meaning Marshall was now finished. Meanwhile, the White Lizard's army continued to attack Holly and Wells. The sheer number of lizard men made it difficult for Holly and Wells to fend them off. Suddenly, the giant dinosaur reappeared, with Marshall sitting on its back. Remarkably, the dinosaur began to fight the lizard men. Marshall reached Holly and Wells, who asked how he had managed to control the dinosaur. Marshall explained that he had removed an obstruction from the dinosaur's mouth, which had made it his ally. However, the fight was not yet over. Marshall said they needed to quickly enter the crystal to stop the White Lizard. The four of them rushed into the mirror, where the White Lizard had used the crystals to open a portal to Earth. If the White Lizard reached Earth, he would deploy his entire army. Marshall and his team began to battle the White Lizard. During the chaos, one of the crystals on the machine fell and broke, causing the portal to start closing. Realizing the importance of the portal, Marshall quickly removed a crystal from Holly's necklace and placed it in the broken machine, reopening the portal to Earth. Marshall aimed to prevent the lizard from leaving and wanted to return to Earth as quickly as possible. He was about to leave with Holly when the scene concluded, but then Wells said that he didn't want to return to Earth. Chaka had informed Wells that there were many beautiful girls in the village, so he wanted to stay and be with them. Marshall couldn't force Wells to leave, so he and Holly used the portal to head back to Earth. The portal closed, and the White Lizard failed in his mission. Wells went to his village, where he found many beautiful girls who immediately surrounded him. Wells had hit the jackpot. Back on Earth, Marshall, after proving his research, was giving an interview to a reporter. Marshall had published a new book based on his research. However, when the reporter heard the book's title, he became enraged and started attacking Marshall. In the end, we see an egg hatching, and a small lizard man emerges from it, marking the conclusion of the story.